So one of the things that I do in my job is I deal with a lot of adults who were victims of child abuse. Um, in my studies as an occult scientist and in developing the Ascension sciences for creative empaths who go through these, massive ascensions, whether where they get to the point in their lives where they have to choose between addictions and self-destructive behaviour, suicide, that sort of thing, or step into the light and embrace their true calling, live their divine purpose, mastering their craft and what it is that they do. And it's often the reason why we fight our gifts growing up is because we are raised to believe that it could never happen for us, that we could never achieve to be the famous writers, musicians, artists, engineers, mathematicians, whatever, because we're around, all creative empaths are around master manipulators in our lives, and it will always start in the home, school, and society, the general area where you're um, either given a certain reputation or you're unseen, depending on who raised you and how you're raised. And the thing that I have understood, because I was abused myself, my mother was very physically abusive and mentally abusive as well to all of us kids, but I don't hold her responsible for that because she was a victim herself. It's just that when she had us, she never learned to break that cycle of violence like I did with my children. I didn't want to be like my mother, so I made sure I never was. And while my mother encouraged us children to embrace our Māoridom and understand the language of the land, and to know the mana of our ancestral spirit, like the strength and our connection to our ancestral spirit, and that when it came to our gifts and talents, it was never anything that our mother supported, because I think she never got to live out her own dreams, because she got married to my dad at 18, was a mother at 19 and had 7 kids, and then battled cancer when she was pregnant with me. And, so she never got to live her dreams. And she was married to a man who was married to his job and who wasn't, loyal and faithful. And my siblings are so talented. They were talented bakers and cake decorators and inventors and artists and runners and rugby players and boxers and hairdressers and fashion designers and writers and poets and singers, and that, like, all of them, every single one of them, had an ability with, my brother had an incredible ability with horses. My other brother, he's just so talented with sports and an incredible artist in that. But these were all people that had the potential to be something with their gifts and talents, but we were never encouraged to. And we lived a life of, being constantly told, I mean, I was always called, picked on for my weight. She would always go on and be about my weight and that, but, we were called all sorts of names: sluts, whores, thick, dumb, stupid, fat, lazy, blah, blah, blah. And it was always done in passive aggressive ways or overly aggressive ways, depending on her mood. And then, when you caught her on the wrong day, you would end up being dragged across the floor by your hair and smacked about the face. And, we would get the jug cord and the wooden spoon and, the shoe, whatever she had on her foot, the slipper, the jandal, whatever, slapped, punched. I'd hide in the closet and get dragged out of the closet. She broke so many wooden spoons on me, it wasn't funny. Whereas my father, who was raised in an excessively abusive household, just like my mother, never touched us. Like, I got smacked by my dad twice, and even I admit I deserved it. But it didn't hurt. Like, he was trying to assert authority and knew it was expected of him, and my sister and I had pushed him to the limit, but it didn't hurt. I think it hurt my sister emotionally because they were best friends, but it didn't hurt me. Like I found it funny that he had gone to that extreme sort of thing, because he was so bad at it. But in helping my creative empaths raise their vibration to become better people within themselves, to learn to accept who and what they are, having been raised from a household and an education system and a society where they're told, please don't be different, like don't be the weird kid, just fit in like everyone else, be perfect and get good grades and just, sort of thing. When you sit in a world that is an imagination of dragons and pirate ships in the sky, or you're painting trees in an abstract impressionist Renaissance kind of way that has a twist of Warhol about it that's never been done before, people freak out because you're reminding them that there is a world outside of normal, and we are the abnormal members of society. We are your freaks, geeks, nerds and weirdos. We are the ones who are brave enough to step out, to find what is beyond the gates of our kingdom, and because of that, we are a threat to the parents and the members of society and the teachers in our school and the students in our school and the friends in our circle who don't, who never got to live their dream, who were forced to be normal, so they want their children to be forced to be normal too. And for a creative empath, that kills the soul and kills the spirit, which is why they target you specifically for the abuse. Parents target the children to abuse who are the ones who threaten the fact that they were never brave enough to be weird and different too. So they try and beat it out of you. They try and beat you into submission, to subjugate you, and use mental and physical abuse and the threats and the ridicule and the embarrassment and the humiliation and all that. It is their inner demons being drawn out by the incredible power of your light. And that's what you need to understand, is that you are targeted because you are pure light, and the dark cannot stand the light, so it tries to bring it down to its level so that it can stand the light, because like attracts like. And when you are around an energy source that is the opposite to you, there is always a negative reaction. The light will always draw out the dark. You will always know who you can and can't trust by how they treat you. And it doesn't matter what they say, it doesn't matter how much they pretend to be supportive, or it doesn't matter how much they are outwardly abusive. You will always be able to tell by their whether their eyes match the tone of their voice, because the eyes don't lie, and neither does the way that the mouth moves. So always look at the person's mouth in conjunction to their eyes, because there will always be a difference between the two when they're lying. So this is me putting it out there to let creative empaths know, especially children, that if you have been or are the victim of abuse, it doesn't matter what they told you. It was never your fault. There was never a good reason why they did it. You were not to blame. You are not to blame for being put here to bring demons to the surface so that people like me can chop their heads off. Because what I do is I find a way to bring out the fight in us so that we can face our demons and fight our fears, to step over that threshold of mental suffering and emotional torture, of always thinking it must have been our fault, we can't have been good enough. This is why children who are abused, who grew up especially in poorer backgrounds like I did, poor children who grow up in abusive households always strive to become overachievers, and we end up workaholics. And it's because we were raised to believe that we were never going to amount to anything, and we weren't good enough to be anything, because that's what they were raised to believe as well. So they pass that toxicity on to you, and it's up to you to break that cycle, which is what I teach people to do, by getting them to realise that they are creative geniuses and that they are here to represent their ancestors and their gods with their God-given talents and gifts that their ancestors worked so hard to create in them genetically, because they're wanting you to share your gifts with the world. Let the world see how you see your world through music and art and invention and creation and photography and pottery and story writing and whatever your medium is, song singing. Don't let the people who fear you rule how you see yourself, because they don't see who you really are, because they're blinded by your light, which is why there's a negative reaction. Like when you put your hand up to the sun, they put their hand up to you because they fear your light. They can't handle it, but that's not your fault, that's theirs. So you were never to blame. There was never a good reason. You never deserved it. Well, I mean, I did that one time, but it was funny. It wasn't anything like you would imagine it to be. So, and what I do with my students, the ones that are learning to step into their occult abilities, their supernatural gifts and talents, what I will be bringing out in the children at my Dragon on the Hill sanctuaries, I heal their inner child, because I let them know that they were never responsible and they were never to blame. It was just simply because they were too special for some people in their family to withstand. And that's pretty awesome because it means you're one of a kind. It means you were chosen to be special, so you need to stand in your supremacy. You need to stand in your regalcy and own exactly who you were put here to be, because the devil only shows its face when it's important. So, when it's coming out in people that you are supposed to be able to rely on, it sucks and it hurts, and it really, really does. I know, but I know a way to show children how to heal from it now because of my experiences growing up. I am, through my stories and through my work ethic and the codes that I'm going to have at my Dragon on the Hill sanctuaries all over the world one day. The children are going to come there. No children will be left behind. It doesn't matter who they are or where they are. If a child out there is being abused, abandoned, neglected, or left behind, they will always be able to come to us. Our doors will always, always be open, whether it's for food, for a cuddle, for someone to talk to, for rescue, for sanctuary, for fostering, for adoption. I don't care. Whatever they need. My dad used to get locked in a closet too. But he would be blindfolded and have his hands tied behind his back, and he would be locked in there overnight and not given any food or water. And he vowed in that closet that he would never ever raise a hand to his children. And apart from that one comedic time, he never did. He did his best with what he knew And my mum did as well. And I think that when you can get to the point in your adult life, if I can get children to the point in their life from a young age to understand the fragility of the human mind in comparison to human reaction, I can help them move past the pain so that it never becomes a suffering as adults, because they will learn to forgive their parents and understand the bigger picture and know that it was never about them and that they were there simply to highlight the situation so that it could be looked at and removed from that child's life. And the fact that they would be in my Dragon on the Hill sanctuaries would be proof of that. That's what I'm determined to do, is to let all the children out there know that our doors will always be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter where we are in the world. So, yeah. So I wanted to put that out there because I was just sort of recently talking to someone about their situation with having their light put out as a child because of, family members worrying about what others would think about them being special, weird and special, gifted, talented, creative and imaginative. And I thought it was a good little thing to talk about because it is a problem that is unfortunately one of those things that we all know is out there. Not too many people want to look at the problem, and yet nobody is asking too deeply as to why we have the rise in mental health issues, why there's a rise in depression and suicide and things like that in children and young people. But I know why. I know why. And I'm trying to put it out there so that the children at least know why. And if we can get other people listening, then, we can actually start doing something about fixing the problem. Because nobody knows a creative empath like another creative empath. So, you got to lead by example. So, anyway, take care, guys. Love you. Mwah.